everyone, welcome. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching Primetime Asia on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines this hour. Two workers reportedly died and two were missing and feared buried at a library construction site in the South Korean city of Gwangju on Thursday after an iron structure at the site collapsed. Pakistan's former ISI chief Faiz Hamid has been sentenced to 14 years by a Pakistani military court for violating state secrets, misusing authority and engaging in political activities. The verdict marks a major move against a figure who served under jailed ex-Prime Minister Imran Khan. China has urged the Dutch government to press Nexperia to send a delegation to Beijing as its standoff threatens to disrupt the global automotive supply chain. The tension began in September and it continues to escalate. US nuclear-capable bombers flew over the Sea of Japan alongside Japanese fighter jets. Tokyo calls it show of force following Chinese and Russian drills around Japan and South Korea. Renewed clashes erupt along the Cambodia-Thailand border with heavy fighting reported near ancient temples ahead of a planned call from President Trump. Both sides remain locked in conflict as expectations rise that Washington may try to broker another ceasefire. China's Commerce Ministry has said that negotiations with the European Union over a minimum price plan for China-made electric vehicles have restarted today. The talks would continue into next week, while China has urged the European Union not to talk independently with manufacturers. Mexico's Senate approved tariff hikes up to 50% next year on imports from China and several other Asian countries, aiming to bolster local industry despite opposition from business groups. And let's start with the top focus. 8 workers have reported a Myanmar military strike on a hospital in Maruk, the western Rakhine state, has killed at least 31 people and wounded 68 others. The attack has targeted the general hospital, causing extensive damage to the building and leaving bodies scattered outside. The victims included hospital patients and civilians. The Rakhine Army, which is an ethnic separatist group controlling most of Rakhine state, confirmed that 10 patients were killed in the strike. The AA has been one of the most powerful opposition forces against the military since the 2021 coup, which ousted the civilian government of Aung San Suu Kyi. This bombing is part of an ongoing military offensive by the Junta, which has increased airstrikes across the country since the coup. The military's blockade of Rakhine state has worsened the region's humanitarian crisis with widespread hunger and malnutrition. And now joining us in this discussion is Saturo Nagao, who is a fellow at the Hudson Institute. Thank you, Mr. Nagao, for joining us in this discussion here. Mr. Nagao, how do you see the developments shaping up, especially when Trump just a few days ago, had said that the situation in Myanmar is now okay, and that's the reason that he cited to withdraw his forces?
In this case, there are two things I need to put it out. Actually, the view from the military strategy, damaging the infrastructure is one of the typical methods to persuade any citizen to give up forcefully. So that's why the hospital could be the target in this theory, if this is the only theory they believe. But another aspect is international law. In this case, the profit attacks these kind of facilities. So that's why the civil purpose facility, but especially the hospital or other related issue which violate international law should be avoided in the military operation. But recently, For example, of course, this time Myanmar strikes the hospital in Myanmar, but at the same time, Russia strikes in Syria. Was another example. Indeed, the hospital is the main target of the airstrike. So that kind of the trend itself is a little bit dangerous because if the airstrike target is hospital, this is a little bit too strong to calm down the conflict. So that's why this should not be the common in the world, and our international community should do something to organize something the airstrike under the rule. Without this, the internet killing is common in the world. That is a concerning point, I think.
Hmm. And how do you think this is going to affect the imminent elections?
Election is just legitimize the current government, so this is not a fair election. So military junta will hold the election only the areas that they can get a victory. So that's why this is not election indeed. This is just event legitimize the current military junta. So that's why this is not a problem. For example, they bomb the hospital in that area where the military junta hold the election. I do not think so. So that's why this is not directly linked with the election, I believe.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Nagao, for joining us in this discussion and helping us with your opinion there. And with that, viewers, we have some breaking news now coming in from Bulgaria, where Prime Minister Rosen Zelyaskov has handed in his government's resignation following weeks of street protests over its economic policies and its perceived failure to tackle corruption. Zelyaskov announced his resignation in a televised statement minutes before Parliament had been due to vote on a no-confidence motion. And now let's move on to news from Americas. Mexico will impose tariffs of up to 50% on imports from countries without a trade deal, including India, China, South Korea, Thailand and Indonesia, starting January 1. The move targets goods like cars, auto parts, clothing, steel and electronics, aiming to protect Mexican industry and reduce reliance on Asian imports. This action was reportedly taken to shield local industry and align with the US pressure on China. Indian car exports, including Volkswagen, Hyundai, Nissan and Maruti Suzuki, could face major losses as import duties rise from 20% to 50%. India is Mexico's third largest car export market after South Africa and Saudi Arabia. The tariffs are also expected to generate around $3.8 billion for Mexico, while analysts suggest they may be partly aimed at appeasing the US ahead of trade talks. Alright viewers, fresh developments now coming in from Mexico, which has now imposed tariffs of up to 50% on imports from select countries including India, China, South Korea, Thailand and Indonesia. And now these tariffs are going to kickstart on January 1, 2026. Mexico has enacted up to 50% tariff rise on key imports from these countries. And in fact, a move now coming after similar measures were adopted by the United States. Analysts say these may be ahead of the trade talks with the United States. The import duty on cars will rise to 50% from 20%, dealing a big blow to some of the largest vehicle exporters. And joining us in this discussion is now Dr. Ajay Dua, former Secretary of Commerce and Senior Economist, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you, Dr. Dua, for joining us here at NewsX World. To help us understand the timing of the tariffs that are being imposed, are we to believe that the tariffs come just ahead of Mexico's trade talks with the United States and is a bid to appease Donald Trump?
Thank you very much for letting me into this discussion. I'm not sure if that's the reason why Mexico has levied the duty, 50% duty, not merely on India or imports from India, but this is across the board, all the large or the large exporting countries of Asia. That applies to China, Vietnam, India, as well as some of the Southeast Asian countries. So across the board tariff, the reason given by its cabinet and the president is that we want to save our own jobs, production within Mexico, and I'm inclined to believe that that Mexico has to protect mainly I think it's the job creation and the linked exports, because it is a major exporting country around the world, and particularly to the United States, with which it, as we all know, it has a Mercosur treaty, Mercosur FTA between certain nations of Latin America and the United States. That it is happening at a time when the US and Mexico are in talks for a bilateral agreement, that it is happening at a time when a trade delegation from the US, led by its deputy USTR, is in India to finalize the BTA with India. It might be, to my mind, just a coincidence, but the reason, otherwise it would have been imposed only on India. The very fact that they have imposed it from where the competition is coming for its economy, for its economic activities, makes me believe that it is a wider kind of a wider application, and like the US, it has also become paranoid, and it's trying to protect its products, which may or may not be competitive, is also vis-a-vis, say, the goods of China, Vietnam, and some of our Indian goods. So this way, it would shield its producers, and it may have a good motive that way, but at the same time, it is politically driven to protect the ruling party in Mexico. You know, in Mexico, employment always remains a big issue because it's a heavily populated country.
Right, and Dr. Dua, do also help us explain the risks that the manufacturers in these countries are now going to be facing after these tariff imposition, particularly for Indian auto exports.
Yes, with a 50% increase in duty, I think India's major exports, particularly to Mexico, happen to be of automobile components and engineering goods, as well as we've also been exporting textiles, apparel, some gems and jewelry, smatterings of what we do with the US, which has been hit ever since the US imposed the 50% duty. It is also going to be impacting the Indian producers of all these items. Luckily, the trade with Mexico, neither our imports from them, our imports are about $2 billion of mineral, because it's minerals and oils, because Mexico is pretty rich in both these items. Oil, it's an oil country, oil-rich country, it's a mineral-rich country, it's got agriculture, and we do have some trade, but it is way less than the 78 billion or almost 80 billion which we had with the US. So impact certainly, but not as much as we had with across the border when that large country imposed the 50% duty on us.
All right, thank you, Dr. Dua, for joining us and helping us with that explanation. And viewers, we are now going to move on. A top secret US government assessment claims that China would destroy American fighter planes and defeat the military in a possible conflict over Taiwan. According to reports, this document was prepared by the Pentagon's Office of Net Assessment and shows a comparison between Washington's dependence on expensive vulnerable weapons and China's cheap but technologically advanced ones. The report also says that Volt Typhoon, a hacking group backed by China, has put malware into computer systems that run power networks, communication lines, and water services for American military bases. The report comes days after China warned that it would crush all foreign attempts to interfere in the Taiwan matter, as Japan warned of placing missiles on island close to Taiwan. Now, retired Major General Sudhakar Ji joins us into the discussions here. Sudhakar Ji, how are you seeing this situation evolving here? Of course, we are seeing China and Japan getting into an escalation over the Taiwan question, but of course, this one remains a long-standing issue.
Kriti, good evening. Thank you for getting me for your show. Yes, I do agree. It's a long-standing issue. In fact, if you ask me, technically speaking, Japan and China, they have not actually gone in for an armistice or not signed any document post Second World War. So, if you ask me, in simplistic expression, the conflict is on. So, therefore, there is no document, nothing in writing available in the world today to say that both the countries are at peace with each other. So, that is a secondary issue. The primary issue is, what is it that we are witnessing today? We are witnessing a very dangerous turn of event, and the dangerous turn of event, to my mind, has come about. The hidden issue is the national security strategy of USA 2025, which has got publicized, which got published, I think, about a couple of days back, 30th November or so. In that, if you open up the paragraph, because this is one of its kind, not the natural flow of things that used to be practiced in USA till this document, they talk about Taiwan. And when they talk about Taiwan, the new stance of USA, we need to understand in a holistic manner. Right. They are talking about the status quo. The status quo means that it is at variance with the TRA 1979. TRA is Taiwan Relation Act, which was signed in 1979. And as per that Relation Act, there was a strategic ambiguity which USA has been practicing for so long, except for Biden's tenure, where Biden, either it was a foot in his mouth disease or whatever, or he didn't know what he was talking. He always used to say that boots on ground. Whenever the media asked him, will America come with boots on ground if Taiwan is attacked? He used to say yes. Not once, not twice, number of times. That is a contrarian view of the standpoint which USA has taken. But this document, which comes out with the status quo imperative, it implies that USA would like Taiwan's current status quo or status to continue. What does it mean? It means that indirectly or directly it is telling China, please do not compel or put pressure or do anything untoward or force Taiwan to reunify with the mainland. Don't apply pressure, don't apply kinetic means. Don't attack or force Taiwan to integrate. If they willingly do so, fine. Otherwise, the status quo must continue, which is not to the liking of China. This has to be understood. This has been preceded by the new Prime Minister of Japan, who gave a statement in the parliament that if in proximity Taiwan is being attacked, but it is also within a proximal range of some of the objectives of Japan, what would be the response? She said, of course, for survival's sake, we have to defend ourselves. We'll go to the kinetic means. So there is nothing wrong in that. But there has to be some effort to diffuse the situation. Otherwise, this may go out of hand. It may turn out to be extremely volatile and dangerous, because our attention may be in Middle East and Central Europe. But the actual thing which may turn the events in world is actually the South China Sea, and where you are reporting from, about which you are reporting in your media platform.
But why do you think this kind of documents are surfacing from China, especially when Trump's new security documents mutes the fiery tone that was in the 2017 documents against China and Moscow. This one now suggests China may no longer be the number one enemy of the United States, but Chinese documents don't suggest the same.
Great. That's a great observation on your part. I must compliment once again. Now, before I reply to your observation, what I would bring out is on 9th of April 2025, Pete Hegseth, he had gone public in giving a statement that there is only one country which has got the capability to destroy all 11 aircraft carriers of USA, no matter how remote they are deployed. Okay, so that country he had brought out that it is China. China has got such hypersonic missile, and more than that, he qualified the statement by saying that within 20 minutes, China would take 20 minutes to destroy all the aircraft carriers of USA. So what does it mean? Is USA anything today without the aircraft carriers? The answer is no, because that gives them the expeditionary power, that gives them the extended reach. So along with that, he also had brought out one issue that there is one country in the simulated war game and battle exercises they have carried out, there is only one country which is repeatedly defeating repeatedly defeating the USA, and that country is China. So these two things put together and the change of stance, it is not the fiery angle that USA is trying to project. It is a different angle which USA is trying to project. If you go through the national security strategy today, which has come out past 7 days back, it brings out one common issue of Monroe Doctrine. Monroe Doctrine is to defend the transatlantic Americas. The doctrine was signed way back in 1823 by President James Monroe with the European countries, and in that they had highlighted a couple of issues. One of the issues was to stop colonizing countries which are across the Atlantic, leave the Americas to USA, number one. Number two, USA also had given a commitment that they will not do anything to intervene in the internal matters or the infighting between the European countries. Number three, the sphere of influence of both the Europe would remain that side towards the eastern part of Atlantic, and the America would remain to the western hemisphere. And fourth point was very important point, was that any interference, any attempt to colonize any of the islands or countries across Atlantic would tantamount or would be interpreted as a violation of the understanding and the commitment, and hence they will be left with no option but to take countermeasure.
Right.
What does it mean?
Okay.
What
I'll have
means
to interrupt you there, retired Major General, but I request you to stay on as I seek your opinion going forward. Viewers, let's also tell you that US nuclear capable bombers have flown over the Sea of Japan with Japanese fighter jets. And now the exercises follow Chinese and Russian drills near Japan and South Korea, signaling heightened military activity in the region. The flight involved two US B-52 bombers alongside 3 Japanese F-35 stealth fighters and 3 F-15 jets. This marked the first US assertion of military presence since China began exercises last week. Japan and the US demonstrated readiness to maintain the regional status quo. China denied Japanese claims that its aircraft carriers drills targeted the Japanese jets. Meanwhile, South Korea and Taiwan also scrambled jets in response to Chinese and Russian air activity. And I'd now request retired Major General Sudhakarji to join us back into the discussion here. Please do go on, Sudhakarji. I'm sure the point that you were making in the previous discussion is valid even for this one.
Yeah, absolutely. You see, on one hand, the new security strategy, it clearly indicates that USA would like to pull back to its homeland and ensure stability of as per the Monroe Doctrine in the Americas, and minimize its expenditure outside, avoidable expenditure in fighting others' war, and try and focus to revive the economy in USA and make America great again. That is the central point. But at the same time, Kriti, it brings out one very important point, and that point is that all the countries in the East China or in the East Asia, which are along the first chain island. First chain islands are actually from Kuril Island, north of Japan, coming down south to Taiwan, and thereafter going up to Brunei. And the second chain island is touching Guam, starting from Kuril again, Guam going up to Australia. And the third chain island is actually touching the Hawaii Island and then skirts around and comes between New Zealand and Australia. So why am I bringing out these three chains? These three chains are actually the defensive lines which have been decided post Cold War, post Second World War 1945. USA during Cold War 1.0, they had actually defined these lines along which they will be fighting a defensive battle against Chinese expansion towards the West Pacific. Should it break out? Taiwan is such a place where if at all it captures or reunifies, it will be actually becoming a launch pad and give the freedom of access, hit straight across the second line of chain and go straight to Hawaii, which is a very major threat to USA. Here is the contradiction which I wanted to highlight. Here is why Donald Trump may not be explicit in the new strategic doctrine or the strategy. And here USA cannot stop but to come on boots on ground and stop the enemy here itself at Taiwan, much to the contrary as to what they have been saying. That no boots on ground, they will support the country like Japan, Korea, Philippines, Indonesia, and etc., coming down to Brunei in terms of material support of the weapons, hardware, etc., but no boots on ground. They have gone explicit in saying they will support the allies in the East Asia. That is all to fight against reunification of Taiwan by forcible means. This is what they have come clear in the new document. That may be a big trigger which is bringing about these kinds of angst in the exercise. And having said that, last but not the least, if you allow me, is there is a tacit understanding because of this new security strategy that there is a concept of G2 which is by and by evolved between the two leaders of USA and China. China perhaps has been indicated, you take care of your sphere of influence, the East Asia, the Asia particularly, and do not interfere anything towards the backyard of USA today is highly under dominance and influence of China. Call it Venezuela or Colombia or any country except maybe for Argentina, which is in good books with USA today. Rest all countries in Latin America are actually on the lap of China. Therefore, USA has to play the game in a very, very calibrated and deft manner, lest it is going to be against the Monroe's doctrine as well. Back to you, please.
All right. Thank you so much, retired Major General, for your perspective on that. And with that, viewers, let's tell you some more inputs now coming in from Taiwan, which is planning to continue producing the world's most advanced semiconductors on its home soil, despite mounting pressure from China, which claims the island as part of its territory. Deputy Foreign Minister Francois Xing-chung Wu has emphasized that Taiwan remains indispensable to the global semiconductors ecosystem, producing more than half of the world's chips, including nearly all of the most advanced ones that power everything from smartphones to AI data centers. Taiwan's semiconductor dominance has long been seen as a silicon shield, protecting the island from potential Chinese aggression, with the United States also seeing the island's chip production as a strategic asset. However, concerns about a Chinese attack have raised fears of disruptions to global supply chains, leading to increased calls for diversifying chip production beyond Taiwan. Despite these threats, Wu affirmed Taiwan's commitment to maintaining its leadership in chip technology, stating that the island will continue to play a critical role in the semiconductor industry. Listen into some comments made.
Try to maintain the most advanced technology in Taiwan, and to be sure that Taiwan continue to play the indispensable role of the ecosystem of the semiconductor. Step by step, we enlarge our investment in the world, but still linking with Taiwan. I think it's just a normal future evolution for everyone. So I think it's not, again, to try to empty what we are doing here and thinking that we are de-risking, just because the demand is growing.
And before we end this bulletin, there's news from Pakistan, where military court has jailed former spy chief Faiz Hamid for 14 years on 4 charges, including interference in politics. Hamid is in custody and under trial since August last year. Faiz Hamid was reportedly once powerful general in the South Asian nation. He was the chief of Pakistan's powerful inter-services intelligence agency from 2019 to 2021. And the now jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan, and the two were considered close allies. The charges range from engaging in political activities and violating the Official Secrets Act, detrimental to safety and state interest. Ahmed also faces a separate investigation of his role in May 2023 attacks by thousands of Khan supporters on scores of military installations and offices to protest against the arrest of the 72-year-old former cricket star. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more international news updates.